Episode 116 of the podcast is sending a dog to the vet to be sedated for grooming an answer to behavior problems? Do we need to send owners to a behaviorist? And who exactly is a behaviorist? Find out this week. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. I get a lot of inspiration for this show from listening to discussions on Facebook, discussions that groomers are having with each other or owners or trainers, but this is one that came up an awful lot this week. So I spotted yet another groomer asking about behavior problems and being told it's time to send them to the vet for sedation, right? Sedation grooming. It's time to send them to the vet. Now, on the surface, that could seem like great advice, but I'm going to say, to my ear, it's only the first sentence of a longer piece of advice. Now, you might be thinking, what do you mean, Chrissy? That's perfectly fine advice. Send them to the vet. It's time to be sedated for grooming. However, this type of advice usually comes up when a dog has done something dangerous or when the groomer is truly worried about their own safety. And I do want us all to be safe. If you are worried about your safety, it's fine to refuse a dog. Refer them to somebody else. You do not need to be the person who grooms that dog, and trust your instincts, because if you get a funny feeling, trust that. Don't get hurt. But we also have customers to take care of and owners that we want to send to somebody. Now, let's imagine that you've made this decision that this dog is a safety risk and you're not willing to take it on at this time. But this dog is in need of grooming right now and maybe can't wait for training to happen. And I think that's a common position for us to find ourselves in. I think at times like that, we can bring that dog to the vet to be sedated as if for surgery and have veterinary staff or a groomer clip down mats, trim nails, etc. At this point, it's a medical need and the vet can get this done in the safest manner possible. However, sedation has risks. And that's part of why I want to bring it up today, because it's not like that's an answer. That might just be the very short-term answer for today. There are many dogs that owners are putting off, like dental work, minor surgeries, because of the risks of sedation for their pets. It's not an easy thing for an owner to see a behavior problem going on and also weigh that against their dog's heart condition or something else that might be going on that makes it really tricky for a vet to suggest something like sedation. I got to say, too, that many dogs have a lot of health issues going on that could actually be part of the behavior problem that we're seeing. So sometimes it's part of the behavior, sometimes it's not. But these dogs often need blood work before anesthesia. They'll be needing an IV when they're under anesthesia, especially some of our older dogs. I want you to be thinking that this isn't just a send them to the vet for grooming, because that's not how it's going to end up working out for that dog. Only this one time, right? That's a very temporary fix. Now, I want to ask you to ponder this part and really think about it. Do you think that the owners are going to do sedation grooming on a regular schedule? Right? If you're thinking about what's in the best interest of this dog to take care of this dog's grooming healthcare needs, because grooming is part of healthcare, do we think that an owner is going to stick to an every 4 to 6 week schedule? Month, 2 months? Do you think every 2 months that dog is going to be brought to the vet and sedated for grooming? Probably not, right? I don't think so. I haven't seen it happen. And I don't know many veterinarians that would feel comfortable with that. So what they're going to do at the veterinary end is probably say, okay, this is a medical crisis at the moment, that this dog's behavior is not conducive to getting what we need to get done, right? So we're going to sedate and we're going to get these mats off and we're going to treat the ear infection or, take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. And then we also need to talk about this behavior. So we should be having part of that discussion with our owners. We should be talking about that too. Like, okay, we need to talk about this behavior problem because it's not just going to go away. It's not like we can just say, send him to the vet and he'll take a nap while we groom him. And I know that probably sounds a little cheeky, but I think that's what our owners are thinking. Like, oh, well, they'll just take care of it at the vet's office because our owners aren't medical professionals and they aren't dog professionals, and we need to spell it out. Spell it out. Make it plain as day, right? The long-term solution is to work on the behavior issue. Straight up, that's the long-term solution. And, the best chance for the dog for being cared for long-term is to learn how to be better for grooming, to learn how to be better for the kind of care that we need to do. And that doesn't necessarily mean he needs to learn how to stand for 2 hours for hand scissoring or something, but to be able to handle the basics to keep that dog healthy. Whatever that case may be for that coat type, for that individual dog, but we need to think about the behavior part, because 15 years for a dog's life is not going to be we send him to the vet and they give him something so he takes a nap while a groomer tries to groom him or a tech tries to groom him. Very rarely is it the veterinarian, but many groomers work at a veterinarian office and they do a lot of sedation grooming there, but we can't leave that as an answer. That's not an answer to the problem that they're having. And then later on in life, there are some real risks with sedation. And sometimes throughout their whole life, they have risks for sedation. And I know I've been there myself. One of my kitties, years ago when I had my kitties, they have since died a very long life. But he had a heart condition. He had a heart murmur his whole life, and we just took extra precautions anytime something had to happen. Like when he had dental work done, we took extra precautions because he had a heart murmur. Like, these things are commonplace. So we need to think about any time we have a dog that is really over the top and we're like, okay, this dog is untouchable. Like, I'm not going to do this dog. I really recommend you bring him to the vet. They can sedate him. They can take care of this. And here's the other part of the sentence. That's the first sentence of a larger story. And after that, the next week, bring him in. We start bringing him in once a week and start working with him a little bit, or whatever the case may be, or go to your trainer or go to some other professional to try to work on this behavior, because this is a lifelong process. This dog has grooming needs. And that's something I think a lot of trainers and veterinarians and stuff kind of lose sight of, that the groomer is a really big part of a dog's life. I think through COVID, we've kind of found that there are a lot of people who are like, whoa, wait a minute, I can't get my dog groomed. Oh my God. Like the dogs are getting injured by their own owners trying to groom them. Like, we've had lots of stories like that what we do is important and what we do is part of healthcare. So we need to make sure that the owners know this is the answer for today, because we have reached a dramatic period in your dog's life where this needs to come off and your dog is untouchable, or your dog is not able to handle what I need to do to get that done. So the kindest thing to do at this time is to send to the vet and have the vet sedate them and then do grooming with them knocked out. And then we're going to work on retraining. Retraining has to happen, and we have to talk to our owners about it, because they won't understand why the vet can't just do that on a regular basis, or they'll only see the dollar signs because it's very expensive to have the vet do that. It's very expensive. And that's actually sometimes how you can help them understand, like, well, if we work on the behavior problem, you could go back to having a dog who is being groomed like a regular dog and being charged like a regular dog. Like a regular dog, right? Well-behaved dogs are just more efficient to groom, and they're better on the owner's pocketbook. A well-behaved dog is just less expensive to own. So you might take a while getting there, but if your dog is a joy to groom, you are not going to have to spend extra money on handling. You're going to have to spend extra money at the vet's office every time you go, right? Like, so there are some ways to sell it to people. But to tell them it's time to send this dog to the vet for sedation could be a very important discussion to have, but it's the first sentence of a much longer discussion, because we need to work on the behavior. Somebody needs to work on the behavior. And in the next part, we're going to talk a little bit about what a behaviorist is all about. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. The other thing I hear pretty often is it's time for a behaviorist. Send those owners to a behaviorist. Talk to a behaviorist. But who is a behaviorist? What does that mean? And I'm going to start off by saying in the United States, it's different than what I'm hearing from like the UK. So I'm only really able to talk about what it is in the United States. In other parts of the world, a behaviorist could be a different term for a different job. But here in the United States, a behaviorist, that terminology is reserved for the academics, the veterinary behaviorist, a veterinary specialist who has gone past veterinary school and continued on to study behavior as a specialty, or a PhD in behavior. So there are a couple of different versions, but even I think even a master's in behavior isn't necessarily a behaviorist. So I want you to know that that's part of the terminology here in the United States. Now, in the UK, the impression I get is that a behaviorist is somebody who is a dog trainer who works more on behavior problems. Here in the United States, that's more of a behavior consultant. And there are a number of ways that a number of different jobs and a number of ways to become a behavior consultant, but that's more of the trade version than the academic version. And I hope that makes a little bit of sense to you guys. What I mean by that is it's pursuing dog training as a field, as a vocation, and going beyond into the behavior consulting part versus I went to school and got a PhD or a master's or a veterinary degree and then got a veterinary specialty. So when we talk about a behaviorist here in the United States, I want you to think a comparison to dermatologist, cardiologist, behaviorist, right? Like this is the person your veterinarian would go to probably instead of you. And there aren't many veterinary behaviorists here in the United States. I believe there are around 80. So when we tell an owner it's time to see a behaviorist, we really need to be thinking about who are we sending them to and who are they going to look up? Are they going to go on Google and say behaviorist and find out that it's a veterinary specialty and there's no one within hours of their house and that they need a vet referral anyway? And are they going to be overwhelmed and just go to another groomer and say, I don't know, they told me they couldn't do him? And that often happens. So if we talk about the veterinary behaviorist, I think that groomers tend to jump the gun and think that what they see as extreme or abnormal must be something that requires a higher level than just a trainer or a behavior consultant. And a lot of what I see is stuff that is so normal. Like you do not need an advanced veterinary specialty to understand why a dog isn't great for his toenails, right? Like a lot of these things, even the extreme cases, a lot of these things are so obvious to a trainer or to a behavior consultant. So there are times where I will tell people it's time to talk to a trainer, right? Like, okay, and definitely I usually start off with, I want you to go to your vet because we always have to rule out medical issues. But if we talk to them about behavior problems and things that maybe we're not comfortable dealing with or we're not comfortable even advising them on, just like, hey, bring him back when he's good. And guys, if you're a groomer, I think that's appropriate. I think that's okay. If you are not comfortable handling something like that, that's all right. If you want some advice, there are people you can call. You can call me. I will happily talk to you about a behavior case you're having. But we need to be on the same page when we're sending people to different fields. So let's talk a little bit about what trainers do, because I think a lot of us in the United States anyway, a lot of us see dog training and we're like, well, how would that help? Because we have visions in our head of a dog training class with like 6 to 8 dogs and their families are with them and they're working on like sits and stays and heel work and like we're walking around the room and this dog has already been through that. Maybe he has some intermediate obedience under his belt. And how would that help? How would training help? But there are so many types of trainers and not all of us are doing basic obedience classes. Obedience classes are awesome, right? That's just one particular part of a larger field. So some of us work on behavior consultations, which is the behavior consultant, right? We talk more about the behavior problems, how to figure out what's going on and how we can change it. And even among that, there are a lot of different specialties in there. There are people who are fantastic at separation anxiety, something that I don't really like taking on. I will refer to somebody else. If somebody comes along with a true case of separation anxiety, I'm like, let me send you to somebody else because it's not something that I really find is my specialty. So I think when we parallel that with the grooming world, that would be like somebody coming to you and saying, do you know somebody who does hand stripping on this particular breed? Or do you know somebody who does color? Because I really want my dog to be purple. Not all of us do that. Does anybody know anybody who loves doing hand scissoring? Like this particular customer wants a particular look. And we all have that in our fields. And in the dog training field, we have a number of different types of jobs. So there's agility instructors, there are flyball instructors, there's the behavior consultant who goes in and tries to solve problem solving. There are people who are specializing in aggression. There are people who are specializing on integrating kids in dogs. So it's time for us all to stop thinking about trainers as just obedience classes. Group obedience classes or puppy classes, because we do so much more than that. And I think most trainers, if it's not in their wheelhouse, will find your customer the person that is able to help them with the problem. We just have to rely on the professionalism of others. If somebody comes to me and their problem isn't in the scope of what I do, I'm happy to refer them to somebody else or help them find the information. And that's part of us all working together. So feel comfortable sending your customers to their vet for an exam and talking to them about maybe finding a trainer or a behavior consultant. And also know that if you send them to a behaviorist or you suggest a behaviorist, that's a veterinary specialty. That's an extreme case or a medical case, more so than just the dog that isn't necessarily good for something. Like the times that I'll send to a veterinary behaviorist is when I'm thinking more like, this dog is unpredictable in a very weird way. Like there's a medical component that I'm not quite understanding, and perhaps it's time for some real testing, perhaps it's time for medication. But even when they go to a veterinary behaviorist, there will be retraining that has to happen. Like there's no pill that just makes dogs great. It would be wonderful, wouldn't it? But like a veterinary behaviorist isn't going to be like bam, we put them on something and now it's done. They're still going to need some retraining. And when we think about things like, okay, sending a dog to the vet to be sedated for grooming, that's probably the kind of extreme case that we also want that veterinarian to talk to maybe a behaviorist about it. Like to understand the whole case and what happened at the grooming shop so that they can kind of decide how's best to proceed. Because how's best? I'm fumbling over my words today. But they're going to be able to say, all right, we need to proceed on this behavior problem. And maybe that is the veterinary behaviorist, who is likely someone that your veterinarian is going to have to consult with versus your owner. So I think that when we talk about find a behaviorist, we're often casually saying like either just a regular dog trainer or someone who specializes in behavior. And we need to just kind of know what those roles are. They're very different. I honestly haven't worked with the PhD in behavior, any of the people with a PhD in behavior, but I love their lectures. Like they offer so much, just that's not who my customers' veterinarians have sent them to. Because I let the veterinarian decide beyond that. Beyond the scope of what I do as a trainer and as a behavior consultant, I usually refer to the veterinarian and make a suggestion about, I'm thinking it's probably time for a veterinary behaviorist, and let them decide on that. And they usually decide on a veterinary behaviorist versus a PhD in behavior. But just so that there's such a variety. There are so many different fields within dog training. And if we can know who we're sending them to, and also, like I said, because the beginning of this was talking about sedation grooming, also if we think in terms of sedating for grooming is not an answer. We need to get it done today for medical reasons. It's not going to help anything. It's not a long-term solution. And so what's best interest for our customers and for these dog owners and for the dogs themselves is to try to find a solution and help our owners figure out who they should contact next. And that can be really daunting for owners. It's better if we spell it out for them. it's better if we tell them, like, okay, I want you to talk to your veterinarian, and I want you to talk to your veterinarian about if you need a trainer or a behavior consultant, or if you need a veterinary behaviorist as your next step. That's okay. Go ahead. Tell them that. Because what we need to do is help these dogs for the long term, for that 15-year lifespan where grooming needs need to be met to keep them healthy, to keep them in good shape. And, like I said, it's really more about hearing these things on Facebook over and over and over again that I feel like I need to point it out. Like, I am not a behaviorist. And if I called myself a behaviorist, that is considered unethical according to the IAABC and the CCPDT. Like, that is not something that is okay. That's against the code. Right? We have codes of conduct in all of our fields. Yeah, that's implying that I have a level of education that I do not have. That's implying I have a different level of education. And so sometimes you'll see a dog trainer declaring themselves a behaviorist, and you need to raise an eyebrow. When somebody says they're a behaviorist in the United States, ask them about more. And if you're on the internet and someone says, I am a behaviorist, ask them more, because they might be referring to a behaviorist in another country, which is more of a training specialty. Just so you know, FYI. So that was this week, talking about like the role of sedation when we send them to the vet and have them groomed, and the role of a veterinary behaviorist, and just what does all this stuff mean? Who do we send these dogs to when we're having trouble with them? And first step, in my opinion, is if we're having a lot of trouble with them, first step is a health check. Send them to the vet and find out if something has gone terribly wrong with their health, and then find out what their next step is going to be for helping this dog become better for grooming, to become a great grooming dog. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you. If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.